Just a quick update for everyone. We got a couple of council members on their way for us to have quorum. I'm going to give them a few minutes, but per code, we can go ahead and do presentations and public comment, but I do want to wait at least till I get one more member in the room. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Community Development Human Services Committee meeting for Tuesday, August the 13th. I am chair of the committee. At this time, we do not have quorum. However, we do expect another council member will be joining us momentarily. Per the code, we are able to go ahead and take public comment, and then we will do the presentation section of our agenda. So at this time, I'm going to start with the public comment. Our first speaker today is Ms. Henry Jordan. As always, you'll have 3 minutes, and I'll give you a gentle reminder at 30 seconds. Okay.
This is the order of the presentation. People that'll come up, but it's just for our FYI.
Giving unto the Spirit of God to everyone that's here. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties and rulers of tens. Exodus 18, chapter 21st verse. The scripture gives us no indication that this was mere worldly advice on the part of Jethro. Covetousness is a noun that means a strong wish to have something, especially something that belongs to someone else. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. 1 John 1st chapter 6 verse. John may have in mind people who claim to be enjoying a close relationship with God, but whose lives were clearly characterized by sin. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Exodus 20 chapter 17 verse. As becoming saint mean that it is not proper for Christians or saints to be guilty of committing the sexual sins listed here, like desiring sex with a neighbor's wife or a husband. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Proverbs 31:31. She's a woman of God who is enterprising and dedicated to her home. It's a blessing to obey God's word and a curse to disobey his word. Are you bigger than Jesus? Christ said to Mary James Griff is to work against his holy word, because of the many women that James have been with. And the income did not come to my hands. The incomes that he defrauded me out of did not come to my hands. Right. And the word of God created the income. Right. It wasn't by me, by myself. It's Christ's word, promote his word, his righteous word, his holy word. It's for our protection against the works of the devil. Because the devil gonna always plot against the will of Christ, the word of Christ. And we need the word of Christ in us to fight against Satan. I know that I do. That I can't fight Satan without Jesus Christ. And we don't want to be like Satan, because God can curse his deeds and his actions. It's a promise from his word. And I'll let you know about God's hate, sin in us, around us, and in others.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Granger Reeves, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Winston and committee members, for the opportunity to provide comments today. My name is Granger Reeves, and I am a policy analyst at the Council for Quality Growth. The Council for Quality Growth is a not-for-profit trade association representing architects, attorneys, builders, contractors, developers, engineers, financial executives, utilities, and community improvement districts. Our members share a vision of and commitment to quality growth and development in Metro Atlanta. Over the last several years, the Council for Quality Growth has been engaged with the City of Atlanta through various stages of adopting a tree protection ordinance. We appreciate and commend city staff and elected officials for working with the various stakeholders to successfully adopt phase 1 of the TPO in December of 2022. And from the beginning of 2024 through the end of June, the Council for Quality Growth and our members appreciated the opportunity to participate again in the most recent City of Atlanta TPO stakeholder meetings. We recognize that there is a lot going on as the Atlanta City Council considers these substantial tree protection updates. While the Department of City Planning is currently drafting the new TPO from scratch, it is also working on 1, a new comprehensive development plan, 2, a zoning rewrite, and 3, critical affordable housing efforts alongside Mayor Dickens and the City Council. With all these initiatives in mind, we respectfully urge the CDHS Committee and the Atlanta City Council to proceed through the TPO adoption process at a pace that ensures all stakeholder viewpoints and feedback are properly considered. That concludes my comments. Again, my name is Granger Reeves. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Todd Mitchell. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Council. Thank you for the time. I'm Todd Mitchell. I am a resident of the city of Atlanta and work for a commercial janitorial service that provides services throughout the real estate community here in Atlanta. I came today to really echo the sentiments of the previous speaker, Mr. Reeves, wanting first to congratulate council and staff on the considerable work that's been accomplished to date, specifically on the TPO, while simultaneously encouraging all involved to move through the process with thoughtfulness and caution so that we get the ordinance we all hope will support the city's future going forward. Thank you for your time and this opportunity.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephen Davis. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. Chairman Winston, members of council, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. Stephen Davis, work for the Atlanta Apartment Association, and you'll hear from Commissioner Prince here in just a second. That's what brings me here today. The planning department is about to undertake 3 monumental tasks that they're trying to do: updating the comp plan, updating the zoning plan, and updating the tree protection ordinance. All 3 of those are massive and could potentially have an impact on the cost of housing in Atlanta. That's something we need to make sure we keep an eye on and make sure that we spend the right amount of time as we look in it. These 3 are interconnected, and I would humbly request that we allow the department to take the time to complete the comp plan first, which will then lead into completing the zoning plan, which will then lead into completing the tree protection ordinance. That way that we know we've done it right and we put in the right time. Because some things you can do quick, but I think we'd rather have it done right than do it quickly. That way we know we have the right plan. So I just humbly make that request to y'all. Thank y'all.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Prophet Curtis Martin. Harrison.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Curtis Martin Harrison. Yeah, actually, I'm here again to always talk about homelessness. To keep you aware of the crisis of homelessness in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County, DeKalb County. So what I'm receiving right now is we're saying that we can't, I'm walking past people that's sleeping on abandoned buildings. 19 people died, froze to death in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County. I knew some of the people who froze to death. That's how serious it is. I'm laying beside a guy, or the guy is laying beside a guy that a guy beside him is freezing to death. That's how serious it was. That's how serious it is. Okay, so what I'm getting right now is where a lot of these homeless folk ain't from here. What kind of sense does that make? You know, if someone's leaving another state coming here because they're homeless, let's think about that for a second. Just let that sink in. Just let that sink in. Okay, somebody in another state to come here because they're homeless. Okay. Okay, now, I'm walking past girls that can't spell their name. I've said that 20 times. Just showing all their body parts, walking them down the street. Okay, I'm walking past men smacking themselves upside the head and homeless, and I can smell them from where you're at. But we don't seem to care about those people. Now, read your Bible. Read it good, read it slow. Now, one pandemic already happened. Another pandemic was going to happen. Now, we say God love us, but God's judge in America. But when you say, well, that's bigger than Atlanta, but this is Atlanta. The movement started here. Coretta and Martin started in Atlanta, Georgia. You understand that? Now, I don't like giving out threats. I'm not that type of person. But I'm saying this, that if we don't understand that the Bible, understand law, it's against the law. Humanity law says you cannot let a person starve on your streets in America. That's what they told me. Now, we're letting people die with freezing to death or heat stroke, but yet we clapping each other's hands. Last time I checked, 40% of homeless people are gay youth. And I particularly say gay youth. But we celebrating Pride Month. You know, last time I said pride, last time the Bible said pride go before a fall. That's what the scripture says. So understand something, that God is judging you, and you don't think so. When we're clapping each other's hands and we singing Kumbaya and we saying everything is great, everything's not great. The government is making it harder to get food stamps. Trust me, my ears to the ground. Your mayor promised that $43 million for homeless people, for homeless awareness, for homeless shelters, and one shelter's been built. We need more shelters. So I'll leave it like that.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Kim Scott. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon to Councilmember Winston and the rest of the committee. Thank you for having me today, and congratulations to the City of Atlanta on our 50th anniversary for the MPU system. My name is Kim Scott again, City of Atlanta resident, business owner, and also a member of the Atlanta Commercial Board of Realtors, and the representative for the Technical Advisory Committee here for the City of Atlanta. So I'm just gonna just briefly echo some of the sentiments from my colleagues. We are asking the committee to extend the deadline for the tree protection ordinance, and the reason we're asking for that is just to allow the department, city planning, Commissioner Prince, they've done such an excellent job. And so we want to continue to support them and ask for an extension so that we're doing an appropriate job, again, in drafting the ordinance and allowing for the appropriate time for stakeholder review. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And thank you everyone who signed up for public comment today. At this time, we do have quorum. So I've been joined by my colleagues to my right, Councilmember Andrea Boone, to my immediate left, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, and to my far left, we have Councilmember Jason Dozier. And we had a brief appearance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari, who will be back shortly. So at this time, I call the meeting to order, and I accept a motion to adopt the agenda. I have a motion to approve by Westmoreland, second by Dozier. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. At this time, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? A second by Dozier.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 5 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. So we've already taken the public comment section of our agenda. We do have a presentation today, but colleagues, if you will allow, we have a few people here for communications. If we could take that first, if there's no objections. Thank you.
Item number 1 is 24C 5095, a communication from Reverend Dr. James Milner Sr. accepting service on behalf of the Chapel of Christian Love Missionary Baptist Church to serve as a member of the commission to determine an appropriate manner in which to honor Mayor Shirley Clark Franklin.
Reverend Dr. James Milner, if you'll please come to the podium and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in joining this commission.
Well, I've worked with the former mayor over the years. I served as her convener for our faith-based roundtable, and years before that, we served together with the Atlanta Project. But beyond that, she helped me quite a bit when I was running a service facility for those who were homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. And I think she's worthy of some recognition. And I'm a native Atlantan, and I think I have a right to have a voice in that.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Westmoreland. There is a second by Councilmember Boone. If you'll please open the vote. Thank you. Councilmember Boone.
Dr. Milner, thank you for all you have meant to the city of Atlanta, and especially to my late father, the Reverend Joseph E. Boone, and I am so very excited that you will be serving on this very prestigious commission. Thank you for all you do along Cascade Road and beyond. Thank you.
I'm honored to be asked to serve, and Father made his way into my sermon this past Sunday as I mentioned how he opened doors for me 48 years ago. And I'm glad to be here. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you and congratulations, and thank you for your willingness to serve.
Takes us to item number 50 in the held section at 24C 5091, a communication from Council President Doug Shipman appointing Ms. Frances Bond to serve as a member of the Buckhead Community Improvement District. This appointment is for a term of 4 years.
Thank you. Ms. Bond, if you don't mind coming to the podium, telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving.
Sure. So I'm originally from Florida. I've been in Atlanta, Georgia for 18 years. I live in Buckhead along with my husband and 2 children who also attend public school in Buckhead. I work at Jamestown Properties and have been there on the development and construction team for 13 years. So in that capacity, have worked with many different departments and many groups, both at the city and around the city and state. Not necessarily City of Atlanta, but definitely with City Hall East and that exchange with Ponce City Market, a ton of work there. And I, living in the community, seeing, everything that is done, I love the city, I love the area, and given my background, I feel it's an incredible opportunity to just enhance in any way that I can the area and try to use my skills to the benefit.
All right. I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Westmoreland, second by Councilmember Bakhtiari. If you can please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Congratulations and thank you for serving.
Thank you.
All right.
Is Mr. Tony Lowe present?
Not, yep.
Then that'll be all.
So we've got a motion to hold by Council.
It's already held.
Okay, it's already on hold. Okay, all right. So we'll move on to the presentation section of our agenda. So we have the Department of City Planning's quarterly update. We'll welcome to the podium Commissioner Janae Prince.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're so happy to be here, me and my awesome Department of City Planning team. Hey, everybody. So today I have a real treat for you. You aren't going to hear from me. You're going to hear from my incredible team. Andrew Walter, our Special Projects Manager, is going to speak to the tree protection ordinance. As you know, he's been heading up this effort. Greg Pace is going to speak to the Form Board survey and permitting. That's very important. That's a big change that we're making. Doug Young, the Director of the Office of Design, will speak to the Comprehensive Development Plan. I know you're all very excited about that as we're gearing up for the 3rd round of meetings. All right. And Kieta Holmes, the Director of the Office of Zoning and Development, is going to speak to Zoning 2.0, which is the legal tool to bring our comprehensive development plan to life. Leah LaRue, coming off a great event for the 50th anniversary of the NPUs, will give you an update. Stephen Cosby, the Director of Housing and Community Development, is going to tell you all about the neighborhood transformation initiatives. And Matt Adams, the Assistant Director of the Office of Design, is going to give you a historic preservation update. And I'm just going to be quiet and sit in the background. So let's get started with Andrew.
Good afternoon. Andrew Walter, Special Projects Manager with the Department of City Planning. Could you advance the slide, please? Oh, it's right here. Look at that. All right, so the tree protection ordinance, y'all are almost certainly aware that we have finished a planning process. We took 5 months between February and June with a select group of stakeholders, carefully chosen to represent the 4 interests shown here: the building community, the tree advocacy and environmentalist community, equity and affordable housing. Affordable housing is a big piece of that equity component, and then city staff. And that would include both the 2 arborist office from Parks and Department of City Planning, as well as the other agencies that are users of the tree ordinance, especially Watershed Management, DEEM, and Department of Transportation. So the goals of this process are listed right there under the assignment. The type is pretty small, but essentially the goal was to increase tree protections and the canopy in the city while minimizing the impacts kind of across the board to homeowners, to builders, to the city, et cetera. And in wrapping up, we had a facilitator. We hired an expert facilitator and mediator, Dr. Michael Elliott, who is a city planner, but also has decades of experience negotiating public policy. And it was a very successful process. We found some alignments, but there were still some gulfs in the final positions. The report, we have received a report that is based on, well, let me back up a little bit. The working group meetings, there were 32 meetings in all. There were working group meetings of all 24, and then we broke up into various either caucus groups of each particular interest, the builders, the tree advocates, and also into topical groups where the working group was broken up across caucus lines so that you had a kind of a subset working on various issues around preservation standards or site planting standards, recompense, those sorts of issues. And we have a draft report. We have received a draft report for the kind of the report out of the working group and the findings, and that report will be the basis, and will provide recommendations that will be the basis for the tree ordinance to be working. These are the primary points right here, essentially confirming what we went into with, which is the idea that we need stronger planting and preservation standards for single family, sort of singling out single family subdivision and greenfield developments as a special category, then mixed use, commercial, and residential development, kind of or multifamily residential development is another category. Looking at recompense is a third. And then there's 2 items on here. The last 2 bullets are really more administrative issues that probably won't go directly into the tree ordinance. One is the understanding that the city really needs to beef up its forestry program. We need to be able to do more planting, especially if we're asking for increased recompense. We'll have more money to do more planting, to bring the canopy up, as well as to protect more forested land for public use. Additionally, we have some administrative improvements we need to do to be more efficient with the use of our arborist staff, but also to be more transparent with the information about how we're enforcing the ordinance, and reporting out data. We've got a data dashboard in the works that's going to be posted to partially address that, and other changes are coming. So the final slide here is our timeline. You can see right where we are, July to September. The working group is over. We're processing everything that we heard in that working group. We're looking at the draft report. We're going to be finalizing that, and then working on finalizing those standards and working on a draft ordinance. I heard several comments from the public that ask you to, to hold off on passing this ordinance. I'm going to leave that in your hands. I'm still prepared to provide a draft by the end of the year, and those discussions could take as long as you all want. Should I take questions or sit down and answer questions at the end?
Sorry, just due to the size of the presentation, we're going to hold questions until the very end.
Very good. Okay, I am finished. I'm going to turn it over to Greg Pace.
Good afternoon, Chair Winston and other members of the board committee. Gregory Pace, Director, Office of Buildings. I'm going to speak about the Form Board As-Built Survey requirements that we just started on the 12th of August, this past Monday, yesterday. Today's 13th. Wow. August is going by so fast. The year. Get a little bit of background history on this. We realized that we were having problems with a lot of, especially since the adoption of utilizing third-party inspection program. Not our third-party inspectors, but the fact that our customers are allowed to use third-party inspectors. We're finding that we had a lot more customers that are going before the BZA for variances for building houses in the setback, violating the setbacks, not following the approved set of plans. As a result of that, we decided to have what we call a Form Board survey requirement. It was originally called an as-built survey requirement. And what the process does is, once the permit has been issued, the builder, contractor starts to work, they cannot call for a rough framing inspection until such time as they have submitted to our office a survey, an as-built survey or a Form Board survey. We decided to use the language Form Board because some contractors are used to that. It's basically, to give you it in somewhat of layman's terms, if someone's pouring a concrete driveway, usually you see the boards that outline the area in which the concrete's going to go. That's the Form Board. And so the same would be applicable for a new house. And this is only applicable for new single-family houses and new duplexes and new two-family. Not anything else, only new construction. And so they would be required to submit to our office a survey done by a registered, licensed state of Georgia surveyor showing where those form boards are, or an as-built survey. An as-built survey is a survey that is done with the foundation poured and any other utilities that may be on the ground. That either one of those surveys we will accept. It has to be dated within the time in which that has been completed, and we'll review that survey to determine whether or not they have violated the setbacks or have deviated extensively from the approved plans. If they have, they will not be able to move forward from their rough framing. They will either have to apply for a variance or correct the issue. That way, we don't wait until the end or 90% of construction is complete. You have a house that's almost ready to go, and now they're sending you an email saying we're holding up their CO, given the fact that they have violated the setback, and now we're making them go before the BZA to get a variance. Not only that, I'm sure the BZA is kind of getting tired of issuing variances after the fact, once construction has already begun, and I know some of the MPUs have gotten a little testy in regards to that as well, so which we understand. And so this is how we're planning on fixing that. So this process started on Monday. We're going through what we call a 2-month soft phase of informing those contractors. If they do not submit those, we will cancel their inspection, let them know that they must submit that survey. After October 14th, they will start receiving a failed inspection. Once they have 2 failed inspections, the penalty is they have to pay a reinspection fee of $50 for each inspection after that. So that's the penalty for not submitting this, but they won't be able to move forward until they complete and submit that information. And here's a bullet point summary of that. What I'll go through now is our permitting inspections, some of our data, metrics from the end of the fiscal year of 2024. As you can see here, number of permits issued. Overall, we decreased from FY23 to FY24, about 6% decrease in permits issued. Our construction valuation, we still continue to give record numbers. However, it was a little less than the previous year. Construction valuation of $5.5 billion of construction, a little over that. Our volume work stream, of course, commercial, light commercial, continue to see high numbers of volume. These are related to projects that are over 10,000 square feet for commercial, and light commercial is under 10,000 square feet, which also includes multifamily. Our volume by work stream, residential is the biggest volume-wise of permits that we issue. A lot of single-family, two-family houses that are issued. You can see here affordable housing for those that are housing that costs no more than 30% of the household income. We roughly about 220, I believe that's what that is, kind of far from my eyesight. And the number of inspections went down a little bit, just a little under 10,000 of 91,000 inspections for the past fiscal year. Complaints, you can see this year we've probably had a little over, I want to say about 1,900 complaints for the fiscal year. Of those, you'll see on this slide, we complied roughly about 60% of those. Another, I want to say about 20% were through citations that were issued and adjudicated in court or still going through that process, and others were still pending. A lot of times we have complaints that we're investigating, and those complaints may be pending due to a variance BZA process, a zoning rezoning process, or even an SAP or SAP process, which can take a length of time which we can't comply right away. These are the different types of inspections. The majority of the inspections are done by the Office of Building Staff, DCP staff. We do have a great number of them that are done by third-party inspections, and another number is our third-party contracted company, Nova, who also conducts a lot of our inspections as well. And I'll turn this over to Ms. Kiera? I'm sorry, Mr. Doug Young for the Comprehensive Development Plan. My mistake.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Doug Young. I'm the director of the Office of Design for the Department of City Planning. I'm here to talk to you about the Comprehensive Development Plan for the City of Atlanta. But before I do that, I'd like to highlight two folks who are in the room with me today who actually do most of the work regarding this project, which is Nate Hozell, who's our project manager, and Monique Forte, who's the assistant director for the planning group in the Department of City Planning. I'm sure you're all relatively familiar with the CDP process to date, or what we call Plan A. I want to bring you up to date on our round 2 activities, which occurred mostly this spring and into the summer. You'll see on the right-hand side, we have a map here that talks about our first round of activities, which were open houses in the early spring. We had 12 open houses geographically dispersed around the city of Atlanta. And then the workshops shown in orange were a little bit later in the spring. But again, 12 of those open houses where we really introduced some of the concepts we're going to be refining as we move along. The second map shows the workshop locations, but I want to also point out here that the dark green were MPUs that had both a workshop and an open house. Now that wasn't the end of our community engagement for round 2. We'll talk a little bit more about what else we did along the way to increase that geographic diversity of public input and the listening that we did in each of those meetings. But I just want to, that's now 28 formal public meetings in just the round 2 of the CDP, where we're listening to our constituents, residents, property owners about how they wanted to shape the future of the city of Atlanta. So that took us through the spring and early summer. Part of what we did in those round 2 meetings is we asked folks to put a dot on a map, that we accumulated dots over time of where they were from, typically where they lived or where they associated themselves with in the city of Atlanta. You can see that while there's a pretty wide range of dots around the city of Atlanta, and some folks actually who weren't in the city of Atlanta who came to our meetings, city adjacent maybe we might call them, there are still parts of the city of Atlanta we need to build our listening capacity with. So we're looking to do that in our round 3 meetings, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But nonetheless, overall, we had about 2,100 total participants in our in-person meetings, as well as folks who completed surveys and those pop-ups, which we use to complement those more formal public meetings. Typically, they were at night. We had a few meetings on Saturdays as well. But total of 29 formal meetings. We had the 12 workshops, open houses. We had the kickoff meetings. So we've really been boosting our efforts to try to get folks involved in that process. But there's still more work to be done for sure, because the more folks we have involved in the process, the more weight and strength it has going forward as an instrument to guide the city's planning and development. You'll see in this, just these images here real quick. For the first time ever, the Department of City Planning participated in a community festival and a parade, which was the Inman Park Neighborhood Association Festival. And then down below, the second image there is us doing what's called the Janes Walk in Northwest Atlanta in Vine City and English Avenue. That's another first for us as well. In addition, other kinds of outreach we did some utility mailers, which are shown in the upper left-hand corner here. Our typical flyers. On the right-hand side is a banner from our website. Then also uniquely this time, we engaged MARTA much more in depth than we have before, including renting some time on their digital message boards in the stations in the lower left, and then having 2 buses wrapped with our project logo and messaging as they traveled around the city of Atlanta. And again, you can see the Inman Park Parade in the lower right-hand corner. Taking you back a little bit though, just to really bring you up to speed there for our round 1 community open houses, this is where we really introduced the idea of our future land use categories. We combined old terminology and old patterns in our previous CDPs to a new concept called the development pattern. Not unusual name for sure, but it helps streamline how we organize and document on our maps and in our development framework discussions what we are calling different parts of the city of Atlanta and what that means for character in their future development. I would note that we did not engage with Atlanta City Design in this process, and so that still stays as our guiding vision document for the city of Atlanta. But we did get feedback on those initial project descriptions. You can see in the image here, if you look closely in the background, there are a board for each of the development pattern examples that folks could ask staff about and have Q&A with the other participants about that topic. So in going back to round 2, after having introduced the development patterns, we said, well, let's have individual geographically focused conversations about proposed development patterns in a certain part of the city of Atlanta. So in this case, we had an East Side meeting, and we focused within that, even still, on specific parts of geography that said, hey, in this part of the city of Atlanta, we have a question we want a specific answer to from the participants. We want to listen to you and figure out, in this case, for example, what do you think is the best development pattern going forward for the city of Atlanta for this, in this case, Little Five Points area? And in fact, on the left-hand side, you can see that we had specific tallies of responses that show what folks preferred to be that development pattern based on the new framework we had established. So it's very granular as well as very thematic around the city of Atlanta. So a quick timeline of where we've been. So we had our round 1 and round 2 meetings, as I've talked about, in spring and early summer. We are now getting ready for round 3, which will be in the fall. These will be more topical-based conversations. Up till this point, we've been focusing on land use and neighborhood development framework and neighborhood policy work. That's, as you might know, just one of many elements in the CDP. So we have to cover these other topics, which are in the lower right-hand corner of this slide. We already talked about land use, but we have urban design, transportation, housing, local economic development, historic preservation, public safety, and on down the line there. So this fall, we're going to have one meeting focused on each of those topics, again, geographically diverse around the city of Atlanta. Now, if you come to one of those meetings, though, we'll still have the other information for you to consider. In fact, we'll still have land use and development pattern information for you to consider, and we'll have little side tables for folks who maybe want to talk about transportation, even though we're at the historic preservation meeting. So we'll get you covered no matter which meeting you come to along the way. Now in the fall, we're going to have more information about the land use and neighborhood development policy framework for folks to consider as we go through those meetings. And then we're going to have more pop-ups, more what we call conversation with planners, where we might go to a library and engage an MPU specifically about their particular concerns in a one-on-one or very small group kind of fashion. So that would be in this fall into early spring, but I wanted to remind folks that next spring, 2025, we will be asking for support for the entire update to the CDP, both land use and neighborhood development framework conversations and all the subject matter chapters of the CDP. So it'll be one big amendment package that will take to the MPUs and to you all as well to get support before we formally submit that and make it final for the City of Atlanta. So I mentioned those round 3 community meetings. Here's a quick summary of those. Again, scattered around the City of Atlanta, and you'll see that we're, again, overlapping some of those conversations, so we're now layering a third set of formal public meetings. This doesn't even take into account our pop-ups and planner conversations I mentioned previously. So stay tuned for those. We're almost 9 out of 10 of those have been finalized times and locations. So as soon as we have that, it'll go on our website. We'll certainly circulate it to you all as other folks who might be concerned about those. Then lastly, get involved. Please spread the word. We know you have great networks and contacts in your parts of the City of Atlanta. It's really important that we have a lot of participation in these conversations. So if you would like information from us to pass on to your networks, we're happy to provide that. We can give you short blurbs to go into an email-style newsletter or something to post on your social media accounts. We're happy to do that as well. We have our project website, atlantaforall.com, which is where all the meeting details will be provided, and we're providing summaries of round 1 and round 2, attendance, themes of the conversations, all that will be there at our project website. Now I'd like to turn it over for our next topic today, the zoning ordinance update, to my longtime colleague, Kieta Holmes.
Good afternoon, council members. Kieta Holmes, Director of the Office of Zoning and Development, and happy to announce that we are in the 3rd phase of our zoning ordinance rewrite. That phase being the actual rewrite of the code, and all the laws and the rules that govern the zoning, the City of Atlanta with regard to the built environment. As you know, since the beginning of our rewrite process, we have talked about streamlining our zoning ordinance to reduce the number of pages that we have to review as staff in order to develop property here in the city. We hope you have had time, or your staff have had time, to see the first module that was dropped on May 20th, which is our form and frontage portion of the zoning ordinance. And we hope that we are on target with regard to reducing and making things easier for people to read. One thing to note is that as a part of the rewrite, we are looking to consolidate as well as minimize the number of zoning districts that we have. Currently, we have over 200 inclusive of all of our sub areas. And so we have been promising a one-to-one ratio, a change, but there will be places where we would like to consolidate so that we can reduce the number of districts that we have and not have so many of them to adhere to. So where we are in the process. On May 20th, we dropped the first module, which is form and use. On December 20th, we will drop the second module, which is site and development standards. And on February 3rd, we will drop module 3, which is procedures and administration. It is important to note that all modules will rest on our Zoning 2.0 website for persons to provide comments and information all the way up and into March 31st of 2025. It is significant to note that we will be taking comments up in until March 31st, 2025. And so I don't want anyone to think that they cannot comment on any portion of the module at any time. We encourage you all to, as Doug said, to ask all of your constituents to please be a part of the process. And those persons who are usually not a part of the process, those that stop you in the store, have a comment, let me just ask you something, please ask them to be a part of the process, because without them in the process, then the code will only be for those who have provided comment, and we don't want that. We want everyone to be a part of the code. In addition to that, what we want everyone to know is after the CDP finishes its legislative cycle, then the zoning ordinance will follow just behind. The vision will go first, and then the regulations will come after. And so without public comment in either one of those processes, we will not have a new vision for the next 5 years, and we will not have a new zoning ordinance, and we will still have the older older 40-year-old ordinance that really doesn't serve the needs of the city of Atlanta. We've been having gangbuster participation. We've had hundreds of persons to sign up for all of our engagements, and we've had hundreds of comments, and we are encouraging more and more persons to comment as we go through the process. Just for a little clarity on what the new strings will look like, because we will be calling them zone strings instead of zone districts. If you are currently in an R1 district, then your proposed name at this point is RH1, and your proposed use is U1, and this follows along in the code. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Leah LaRue to talk about MPUs.
Thank you, Director Holmes. Good afternoon, council members. Leah LaRue, Director of the Neighborhood Planning Unit Support Group team. And happy anniversary to the MPU system, 50 years today. We're very excited. And just a quick update on what we've done over the last few months since we last presented. We've conducted through MPU University 17 courses, virtual and in person, including over 1,000 participants. About a year ago, we opened up our classes to city employees, which we have found really increased and improved the quality of discussion and of learning in all of our classes. So we've had 116 City of Atlanta employees to participate in our classes, as well as we have an average of about 61 students per class and an 86% positive feedback in all of our course evaluations. You have in front of you a commemorative catalog that we published just for this year. We published a small number of those so that people would have a keepsake, particularly those that are power users of the MPU University program, those that attend just about every single class. We wanted them to have a special gift for participating in MPU University, particularly in this 50th anniversary year. We also introduced 5 new classes this year, including our introduction to the comp plan, which was taught by Commissioner Prince, and that had the largest attendance of all of our classes. Prior to that, Invest Atlanta had set a record with, I think, about 120 participants, and for the introduction to the comp plan, we had nearly 200 students in that class. We also conducted a neighborhood empowerment workshop. Our work has been, and you've probably heard me talk a lot about promoting equity, our work has been largely around promoting equity in the MPU system and in Atlanta in general. We are doing everything that we can to really build up the South Side and the West Side in particular, so that they have access to the same resources and information that we have in other places in the city. So we hosted a neighborhood empowerment workshop to teach and help MPUs in processing all of the zoning applications that they have and working with developers and just really making sure that they knew what questions to ask and how to weigh in on the development of their communities. We also partnered with ULI for the Urban Plan Academy, which was a ton of fun. ULI uses Legos to give and separates all of the students into teams. We had a couple of city employees participate in that as well. The teams are given a challenge to build a development that satisfies everybody, including community leaders, city leaders, a mock council, and the developer, and of course making a profit. And it was a lot of fun, and my team did not win. And of course, you know, on June 3rd through June 7th, we hosted Civic Responsibility for Young Leaders. We had 30 young people from Maynard Jackson High School, Washington High School, Thero, Mays, Midtown, North Atlanta, Drew, et cetera, all these Atlanta area high schools. They spent a week with us. We are appreciative of all of the city departments, of course, that hosted young people. They shadowed city leaders. They toured the mayor's office. Many thanks to the mayor's office. Many thanks to city council for hosting them as well. They got to tour the city council offices. They had just a wonderful learning experience all week. And then, of course, they ended that experience on Friday with a mock council meeting where they introduced and debated their own legislation. They were also awarded over $13,000 in stipends and earned 866 community service hours, which are required for their graduation. So we are wrapping up phase 2, which is the Love Thy Neighbor phase. Very, very excited to be unveiling or debuting our block party trailer, which is filled with all the things that neighborhoods need to host their own block parties, so they won't have to try to raise money or ask for money to host block parties. Everything they need to have a block party will be in the trailer. We are unveiling the trailer at our first MPU 50 block party in Sylvan Hills in MPU X District 12 on August 24th, Saturday, August 24th. That's from 11 to 2. I hope that those that are available to attend will do so. And then we're hosting one also in Adamsville in District 10, NPU H, on September 21st, I believe, is the date for that one. We're also doing some social media outreach and engagement campaigns. We hosted a lunch and learn yesterday. Of course, we had our anniversary celebration today. I'm still very excited about that. Thank you to those that were able to make it there. And last but not least, we're moving into phase 3, September through December. You've heard me talk before about reimagining the MPU system. We've been asked by not only MPU leaders and members of the public, but also by members of City Council who really want to see, and of the mayor's office, who really want to see what we can do to make this system work even better. So in phase 3, we'll start those conversations. We will have an extraordinarily robust engagement plan. We've already pitched our engagement plan to APAB and are hoping to get their support as well. As we learned in the lunch and learn yesterday, the most meaningful engagement is engagement that goes slow enough for everybody to get on board and be included. So we'll be taking it very slow as we host all of these conversations about reimagining the MPU system and strengthening it and making sure that we have a system that works for everyone. We have a few events also coming up in phase 3, including a collaboration with the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission, our Trash Bash Atlanta. I've been practicing saying that, Trash Bash Atlanta. We have our second block party. I was wrong with the date. I'm glad it's on here. September 28th is block party number 2 in Adamsville. And then we're hosting, in collaboration with ATL DOT, and bike ride at the Atlanta airport, going from the airport to Howard Middle School, I believe it is. And then the Love Thy Neighbor Festival. We are having a festival to celebrate Atlanta's neighborhoods in November, followed by the State of the MPU address in November, also along with our annual Chairs Appreciation Dinner. So you can get more information about any of these events, of course, by calling me or emailing me, or on our website at mpuatlanta.org. One last thing that's not included here, but you have it in front of you. We did one of the, another task or charge that has come from council members, MPU members, and many others is outreach to the MPUs. We really have worked so hard over the last several years to reach every household in Atlanta. It is not as easy as it sounds, and I know that my colleagues know how challenging it is to reach every household, but that remains our goal, and we're not going to stop until we're able to reach every household. To do that, we, in addition to the utility mailers that we did, we also did a mailing that we hope will stick around a little bit longer. We mailed out a refrigerator magnet to, we started with those in vulnerable communities, mostly south of I-20 and on the west side of the city. But we sent them a little dry erase refrigerator magnet that we hope will encourage them to look out for their neighbors and be good citizens of Atlanta. So that's it for me, and I'm now passing this on to my colleague, Stephen Cosby, who is going to come and talk a little bit about our Neighborhood Transformation Initiative.
Thank you, Leah. Good afternoon, Chair Winston, committee members. Stephen Cosby, Director of the Office of Housing and Community Development. And I'm really excited to speak to you today about work that we've been doing in the Department of City Planning known as the Neighborhood Transformation Initiative. Before I dive into what that is, I want to acknowledge our team, some of whom are here in the gallery today, who are the team members who are doing this work on the ground in our communities and working to impact equitable outcomes across the city of Atlanta. This team is led by Dr. Jay Matthews, who's our Assistant Director over Neighborhood Economic Development, and Brian Wismer is a project manager overseeing the work in downtown and along the Campbellton Road corridor. Reggie White is our project manager over the work in Thomasville Heights and works some on West Hollowell. And then Mindy Cow is our project manager working on the west side in English Avenue, Vine City, and Grove Park, Bankhead, along the Hollowell corridor. Not pictured here is another addition to our team, a colleague who sits in the mayor's office who is leading the work in West Hollowell, specifically around the Bowen Homes Choice Neighborhoods work. Her name is Tamil Harris. So what is this work? You'll remember that soon after taking office, Mayor Dickens identified 7 neighborhoods across the city of Atlanta that had been disinvested and were in need of specific attention and focus and care from city government. And these include the neighborhoods that I just mentioned, but you can see them on the screen as well, stretching from northwest to southwest to southeast Atlanta, these very specific corridors and neighborhoods that are in need of focused attention and resources and a collaborative approach to community reinvestment and revitalization. I want to be very clear that this work is not about creating new plans. It is about investing in and providing resources to implement existing plans. And so we are taking plans that have been adopted by neighborhood associations, by NPUs, by city council, and just providing additional horsepower behind them to drive their implementation in ways that are thoughtful, that are connected to community, that are being advised by community. Our primary objectives are really addressing these racial equity gaps that we find throughout our city. I'll get into that in a second here as we see on the next slide. But also positioning these areas that have been overlooked and kind of leapfrogged in terms of development in some cases, positioning them to grow and thrive. What is the next chapter for these communities? We want to help be thoughtful participants and kind of co-leading that conversation alongside neighborhood leaders and place-based organizations that are working in those spaces. We want it to be an inclusive conversation that we can facilitate. We also want to strengthen the civic infrastructure. We understand that sticks and bricks are very important, that physical structures and development is very important, but also so are the development of our neighbors and our leaders, ones who are guiding this change and facilitating it. So you might ask, why these places? These places are ones that unfortunately experience wide disparities in everything from health, as you can see here, life expectancy. Folks expected to live 87 years north of that dotted line on the map. South of it, only a couple of miles away, 67 years. We are all too familiar with these numbers. Children living in poverty, 2% above that line in North and Northeast Atlanta. And below the line, 80%, 75, 70%. High school completion, the same story. So we see these numbers over and over again, and this effort is really a very targeted approach to say, we want to invest in these communities. We want to work alongside neighborhoods and neighborhood leaders to help them implement their plans, right? Sometimes we know that neighborhoods develop amazing plans, but if they don't have those partners to help implement, sometimes the plans can sit on the shelf for a while. And those projects, while well conceived, may not see it to on the ground implementation without the assistance that we're seeking to provide and to facilitate. So you might wonder, how does this work align? How does it all come together? Our overarching vision in the Department of City Planning across city government, of course, is Atlanta City Design. That is our framework that gives us priorities and kind of something to aim for in terms of these goals around equity and nature and driving our economy. That trickles down to our documents and our processes that you heard about earlier today, our CDP, our zoning ordinance, and other plans and documents that help guide the implementation of that vision. What does that look like on the ground, right? Zoning, permitting, and financing is another step of that. It gets a little bit more granular, right? And then we get to actual on-the-ground implementation of the projects that we're talking about here. So our process has been to really spend a lot of time developing relationships, getting to know the community, the NPU leaders, the neighborhood leaders, understanding those projects. What do they mean to the community? Are there certain projects that are more priority to the community, a higher priority to the community than others? And then, phasing, project phasing, in terms of availability of funding, different funding mechanisms and streams that might be available to us. We need to have those conversations with our community. So we're in the process of developing those neighborhood working groups as we speak. We've been reviewing plans and documents that are those guiding foundational documents for our neighborhoods, and getting a really good understanding of what neighbors have said they want in the past, and what is driving those conversations about the future of the community. We've developed draft project lists that are scraped from those plans. We've been very thoughtful, very inclusive, and bringing all of those projects into the mix and developing that list that we are continuing to tweak and to refine. And then, as I mentioned, we're forming neighborhood working groups and working with our peer departments, with ATL DOT, with Parks and Rec, with Watershed Management, with others, to say, as these project lists come together, what projects are teed up for funding in the next cycle? Which ones have funding already identified? And how can we work to facilitate movement of those projects through the pipeline? So our progress to date, we have, like I said, completed project lists for each one of those geographies, those 7 neighborhoods that I mentioned. We've established partners in our peer departments in working to understand the specifics of the projects, funding availability, phasing, all the details of just getting this work completed. And then neighborhood working groups have been established in 4 of these areas, including Thomasville Heights, Grove Park, Historic Weston Heights. We're launching the one in English Avenue, Vine City next week. And then the West Hollowell group is also up and running. We're still working to identify kind of a community quarterback of sorts along the Campbellton Road corridor that can help us lead this work. We have those partners in the areas that I just mentioned with Grove Park Foundation, Westside Future Fund, Focus Community Strategies, and others. We just need that partner on the Campbellton corridor, although we have been working in concert with MARTA on a regular biweekly update call that takes place to talk about the BRT line and the planned economic impact of those station areas along the BRT right-of-way. And then downtown is moving forward through an alternative path. I'm sure that you all know about the work that's happening in downtown to improve our city streets and public spaces and all the things that we're trying to do, not just to get ready for a World Cup, but to improve the quality of life for all of our downtown residents and users. And so that's working in a very active way right now as well. So some selected projects, as I mentioned, English Avenue, we're working very closely with partners on the Brawley corridor that was called out in the West Side Land Use Framework Plan. West Hollowell, that Choice Neighborhoods work is front and center. Campbellton Road, as I mentioned, the economic impact around those BRT stations is, we're laser focused on that right now. Grove Park, of course, the Chapel Road site through ABI, and other facility realignment in that area. Having to do with currently owned city facilities, as well as the MARTA station there. And then Thomasville Heights, public land redevelopment, and just continuing to work closely with the neighborhood to understand priorities and phasing and continuing to unfold that work as we seek implementation of all the wonderful things that their neighborhood plan calls for. So that is my portion, and I'm going to pass it off to Matt Adams my colleague in
I
Office
have
of
one
Design.
question while you're there.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you looked at any neighborhoods in District 10 at all?
In District 10,
Yeah, like Rosalie Wright, Adamsville, Delmar Lane, and Carroll Heights.
that's right.
You could look at those, and let's you and I circle back around in the next couple of weeks with
Okay.
the administration.
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
I just can't imagine Rosalie Wright, Adamsville,
Right.
Delmar, Carroll Heights, some of those communities not being priority neighborhoods to this administration.
Okay.
So
All right.
let's circle back around and let's see if we can put something in there for District 10.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Matt Adams. I'm the Assistant Director of the Office of Design, where I manage the city's historic preservation programming. Can breathe with a sigh of relief. I only have 2 slides, and they're very short, but they do pack a punch. Let's see, how does this work? There we go. So first off, I wanted to introduce a new program to y'all. It's called Preserving Pride. Y'all may be familiar with the LGBTQ+ context statement that we completed just a little while ago in partnership with the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ+ Affairs in historic Atlanta. This is the programmatization of that study. So we have a launch event coming up on Monday, September 16th. We're going to be focusing on the theme of LGBTQ+ healthcare and healthcare advocacy within the city of Atlanta. That's one of the themes that that study identified. And we anticipate this being how we educate the public about the LGBTQ+ history and sort of build that constituency behind LGBTQ+ places and spaces. And second, the Office of Design will be presenting at the National Trust for Historic Preservation's Past Forward conference. That's a national conference, the largest historic preservation conference in the United States. And we will be presenting on the LGBTQ+ context statement. Not only the statement as it's completed, but also the ways that we'll be working it out. So Past Forward reaches a large number of people in the United States. As one of the first municipalities in the Deep South to do this sort of study, it's really sort of a learning opportunity for us to sort of share what we've learned and for other folks to learn from it and really exchange those kind of ideas. And that's it.
All right, thank you, and thank you to the entire DCP team that joined in on the presentations today. So at this time, we're going to open it up for questions. We do have a queue of colleagues that are lining up, so we're going to start with Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Winston. First and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you to the team. And also, I just also want to really thank the MPU team as well, because I've seen some of my constituent emails to y'all, and I am so sorry. So that should be owned first and foremost. And also, let me just also say that when that occurs, always feel free to loop me in. I will never stand for someone talking to our staff in such a way. So that first and foremost, I really wanted to, there's a lot of questions I have, so this might be a minute. On the piece first about the tree trust fund, so I don't know if Andrew wants to come up for that. I know that there's talks around recompense and everything else, and I know that there is some fear, and I know that there's a lot of pressure, and that we've been doing this for a long time. I want to publicly iterate and for the record and state that I am completely in favor of us pursuing recompense, and that needs to be done. I know that there has been, I've heard murmurings of there being, concerns and things not going well. One, I want to say that the feedback has been Michael Elliott was fantastic, and I enjoyed my conversations with him. Two, I understand the history that the department has had in tackling this issue, and that our tree ordinance has been eaten away year after year after year. Not recently, I'm saying we used to have one of the best TPOs in the country, and that has been, chipped away at over time. And I want to state the importance because, is everyone here currently aware of what our ozone pollution rating is in Atlanta? It's an F. Our air quality is terrible. How many, if you follow the Weather Channel, if you follow any type of notifications, the number of weather advisory or air quality reports we have gotten over this month has been disturbing. Our carbon index levels, everything else. So I want to say I know it is a fine balance between finding a way of building housing and green space. I don't think that those two things should be opposed. I don't think that you all think they are opposed. I think the public believes that they are opposed, and that is a culture shift that we're going to have to work on for years to come. But it is, I cannot begin to once again stress the importance when y'all are presenting just now on selected projects. I'm going to say Stephen. Did I get that name right? Stephen, you did a great job. You're behind the column. I can't make eye contact with you, but fantastic job. The piece that you brought up again, highlighting the life expectancy levels and how things shift between North and South Atlanta. We are seeing the effects of modern day redlining, clear cutting, cement being laid down. And South Atlanta and parts of Councilmember Overstreet's district, Councilmember Boone's district, Councilmember Dozier's district, and south parts of Councilmember Winston's district, and parts of mine, but more so theirs, has high heat-related deaths that we do not track, not because of you all, but because our country and our statistics and weather-related issues, we do not track heat-related deaths as we should. Nobody does in this country. But their conditions, and so for me, I understand that the way it's structured is that people are like, well, trees are not more important than housing. I would agree with that. However, I believe that we should be, I want to stress again how needed recompense is and how we have waited and holding off on certain pieces until this is concluded. And I know how difficult it is going to be to do the next step because of the way that the building community and others are weighing in. But I am here to say that I'm going to fight with you on raising recompense. I would never ask you to stand out on that limb, no pun intended, by yourself, or maybe some intended, I don't know. I want to fight for recompense with you because we do not associate it as a urgent matter, but the air quality and other issues that we are having here, and quite frankly, depending on how, well, seeing the Supreme Court rulings on Chevron and everything else and the deregulations that are occurring, I think that I know that it is time to rip this Band-Aid off now. And I know that there's going to be a lot of pressure from businesses, builders, et cetera, but I'm letting you know that you have this council member that's saying, I want to pursue higher recompense with you all, and that you are not in that fight alone, and that I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but nobody up here and nobody in this that has the privilege of being in this room's discomfort should be placed, should have a higher priority than a black child's health in South Atlanta and their ability to breathe clean air. So I wanted to stress that for the record. And again, and if you want to reply to my long-winded statement, by all means, but I thought it was important to name that before really digging into some other pieces.
Sure. Yeah. Just two responses to that. One is one of the things that we have discovered and talked about in the working group process is with increased recompense also comes a need for increased city capacity to use that recompense to plant, especially in the planting programs. That the tree ordinance, it may increase canopy, but it likely won't. The main mechanism of the tree ordinance is really, it's a development ordinance intended to limit tree loss during development and provide replanting. But to bring the canopy up, beyond where it is now is probably going to take, it's almost certainly going to take pretty significant city planting programs.
We're also going to have to get we're going to have to get creative and also look at ways of probably incentivizing people to plant, not water oaks, no more water oaks.
Right.
Regular oaks and other canopy
You can't really get a water oak at the nursery anymore.
Well,
So,
I love them. I love them, but after, I know they grow fast, but they're not long term. So y'all have made me a tree nut, and it's the amount of tree facts that now live in my head since taking this position are extensive. So please continue.
So yeah, the one point is the city will need, with the city arborist staff in both departments will need more.
You mean more than 2 people for the entire city?
We will need more than 2 people in the Parks Department, yes. But additionally, the recompense, the way, the recompense does not have to be the driver of tree canopy.
Okay.
So we've discussed this in the working group, and one of the things that came out is that while an increased recompense fee may be a factor in determining tree preservation and planting, it doesn't have to be. And it's largely viewed by both the developers and the tree advocates as not a particularly effective tool for tree preservation, that the ordinance itself can define what is needed. We've seen, that recompense has not shown itself to change behavior a lot. A lot of those costs can be passed on to the customer in the larger developments, which is most of our trees being lost.
I would slightly push back against that by saying that the funds, and I understand that we need to discuss the utilization of the tree trust fund and things there.
That's
the
my
big
point,
argument back is, well, you're not using the money that's there.
Right. No,
the
need for the recompense fee to go up, in my opinion, based on what it looks like we're heading, there's there's a lot of conversation to have first, is that the Tree Recompense Fund is primarily useful for or needed for the forestry programs that the city has to make sure that, the whole concept of the tree recompense is if you cut down trees, you need to make the, provide those environmental benefits somewhere else. If you can't plant all those trees on site, you pay into the tree fund and the city plants those trees for you. So we need the funds but we use that money for purchasing forest as well. So we need the funding to support our programs, but you don't necessarily have to think about the increased tree recompense fee as being the determinant for tree preservation.
Okay. Understood all of that, and I know it's going to be fine balance. I'm just going to say that more time may be needed on some pieces, but I do believe that we need to dig in and rip off the Band-Aid sooner rather than later. I mean, it has been a lot of time, and if we need to have an additional meeting off, more to talk through, but I want to hear the findings, but my biggest fear is this going on another year with there not being any progress.
And we intend to set up meetings with as many of the council people, with as many of you all as possible, to talk through these things as we're developing these.
Understood.
Or run our recommendations by you and get feedback. Yeah.
What is the timeline on that?
Within the next couple of months is my hope.
Before Christmas?
Yes, obviously, yes.
Yeah. Understood. And Rachel Reese, please. So I will follow up with you on that. I mean, I know that there was legislation that we were waiting on certain things and that there are low-hanging fruit recommendations and other things, but recompense is going to be a very big one. And I want to state that I am sensitive to the fact that you are juggling the building community and other things as well. But this, environmentally will always it's something that we don't immediately feel. So I'm letting you know that this is something that I'm going to be holding on to and not going to be letting go of anytime soon. So.
Understood.
Thank you. But honestly, really positive feedback from the work sessions. Also, really glad to hear that everyone came out alive and unscathed. So appreciate that. And those are my questions on the TPO, Andrew. Thank you. The next piece I wanted to ask about everyone's favorite topic, short-term rentals. I am curious as to when we are looking at any introduction for STRs. As I've stated before, the heat map in my district is only growing, and the reality is the market is now controlling the vision for this, and the market doesn't care about people, it doesn't care about input, it doesn't care about placement, it cares about where it can fit in and quickly and how to have the most return. So I'm curious as to when we will be introducing or at least enforcing what we have.
As I mentioned during the budget process, the Mayor's Office of Policy had taken the short-term rentals ordinance to work on the revenue piece of it. Since that time, the Mayor's Office of Policy has taken over the work on the short-term rentals ordinance, so I don't have an update for you.
Well, thank you for telling us that. That should have been, frankly, something that was communicated by the Mayor's Office of Policy to us. So thank you for letting me know. Then we will pursue that with them to find out what is happening. And again, I want to note again that while they are the Office of Policy, this is the legislative arm. So we will be following up with them, but if they are listening, increased communication around things like this are vital for us to be able to communicate with our districts and actually protect them. So that is, I'm not going to lie, deeply frustrating. So thank you. That's not directed to you, Commissioner. So I will follow up with that. The other piece was also, as we're talking again, and this might be a question for Stephen or someone else, the piece on, I know in the past we've had planners for the MPUs. As we're placing so much on you all with CDP and 2.0, that's been the case in the past. Has there been any discussion with the administration on granting you all this resource? Because $26 million, frankly, is not enough funding, and to also eliminate that resource. And also, I believe that NIMBYism is fueled by, let's be very frank, we've all faced NIMBYism regularly, but I believe that also exists because there is not an outlet in which for them to ask questions or direct things. And that resource may have been imperfect, but it was still highly valuable. So has there been any discussion of bringing that back for you all?
Although we have planners assigned to each NPU, it is not their full-time job. It is on top of their full-time job.
Yeah.
What we would like to do is, as we move forward with researching how to make the NPUs function better in the future. One of the things we would like to look at is having staff assigned by area of the city so that they would become the expert in that geographic area. At present, we do not have the staff to do that, but that's an idea that we have been wanting to explore.
Miss, do you mind if I ask Ms. LaRue a question? Would you be able to speak to the last time? Am I incorrect here in thinking that that used to be something we had?
Yes, Councilmember. As far as I know, the last time NPUs had full-time dedicated planners was in the 80s or early 90s. And I think it was associated with federal funding that paid for that staff. We have, as Commissioner Prince, we actually just had this conversation last week. I advocate probably every week for full-time dedicated planners for NPUs.
And understand, and again, that is where you all state and ask so that we can understand, so that we can better advocate. But my question is also, my understanding is the Ombudsman's office had hired people for each of the NPUs. Is there any collaboration with them and you all in terms of helping you with those resources they have available to assist with fielding NPU questions or helping you all, because they seem to have the resources, but are those resources being shared with the most front-facing department? I know they're very easy questions today. I'm sorry.
The answer is no.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. And then my other question was, I had questions about certificate of occupancies. I was wondering, there seems to be a communication issue with some of them. We've caught a couple of developers red-handed not putting in their sidewalks and getting their CO. So I was wondering, and we've been able to hold them accountable thanks to this office, but what can we do to prevent that from being a regular occurrence?
We recognize that issue and just recently had a conversation regarding to put that review process within a seller so that it's easily can be flagged. Currently, we're relying on a manual process, which has not gone well. So we're working through that, but we should have something in place within the next couple of weeks so that it definitely flags the system so that COs are not issued when sidewalks are have not been installed. So we are looking at that.
Thank you. Is there a way for us to get an update when that does occur, one-on-one meetings? Like, do we know approximately the timeline in which that may start?
We anticipate meeting with the administrators, system administrators this week.
Okay.
And so once they tell me how long it'll take them to write scripting, if scripting is needed for that, then we'll be able to give you a better answer.
Thank you. And in the meantime, with the administrative waivers, there's still a fee that needs to be paid, correct?
I'm not familiar with that. Kieta?
I'm just circling y'all up here. I'm sorry.
Fees are only paid via sidewalks under the subdivision ordinance under Chapter 15. Any sidewalks that are required per Part 16, there are no fees associated with it.
There are no fees associated.
The only fees that are associated with it are the cost that the developer has to install.
Okay. And if they pay in lieu of installation?
I do not allow pay in lieu of. It's install or waive.
Or waive. Okay. So I will follow up with you about that then offline, because I was curious as to if we could have fees paid into sidewalk specific or into district sidewalk funds.
Those would have to all be established by each of the respective council districts and would have to have a place for that money to go.
I love a new project. I have that as well. I know that we have it set up, but every council member needs to have it set up. Okay, so we will all talk and then circle back with you. Thank you. And then I was curious also, it's come to my attention. We have a lot of the developers we're talking about, we have developers that are individuals that are targeting, you may have seen the complaints list that Councilmember Dozier had, and I know he'll speak to it, but I've been having an uptick of certain developers that are targeting legacy residents, especially in the Reynoldstown area. We are catching them doing everything possible to cut corners. We've gotten them on zero lot lines, illegal dumpsters, et cetera, but they are certainly building and not following code. And by the time I catch them, and currently we're asking the neighbors to give us all the information so we can send it over so that I'm not doing it as I have been doing it, random piecemeals to you all. But I am curious. I know APD informed me that they cannot come out to enforce building infractions because they do not know code-specific situations, things of that nature. So on weekends, what is our best option when we know that they're going to take advantage, when we have a builder that is, like I currently have, that I caught this weekend, doing things, and we have to go out there and speak to them directly?
There is a phone number, 404-330-6178.
I'm going to get that tattooed on my forearm.
There you go. No problem.
Thank you.
And whatever tattoo artist it is, let me know. I want to get one too.
When they call that number, can you walk me through what occurs?
One of the supervisors of the district is assigned weekend activity. And they have at least 2 inspectors that are assigned to work on the weekends as well. And so they'll dispatch someone to go to that site, or they'll go themselves.
Fantastic. Okay. I'll make sure to share this as well. And sorry, I told you it was a lot of questions. My other question was, the last one was, I know that my first year on council, which feels like forever ago, was one of the things we got passed was the Section 8 housing piece, where if any public dollars were used, that they would have to, and I want to thank Ms. Robinson for working with me on this, that we had to, they had to register with Atlanta Housing and accept Section 8 vouchers. Not a number, but a requirement. So have we been doing any tracking? I know that Beltline adopted that, and I know that Invest adopted it, but in partnership with us. I know that we also adopted it as part of it. Are we doing any tracking of that?
That's outside of my purview.
Understood.
Pass this over.
Carolina Rodriguez in the Office of Housing and Community Development would be the correct staff person to ask about this. And she has a meeting, so she has taken off, but we'll get back with you on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And that does conclude all of my questions. And thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. So I'm done, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. I'm going to kick it off to Councilmember Dozier first, but just want to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet. So, Councilmember Dozier, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Prince and team, for being here. I love seeing y'all come and, thick as thieves whenever there's a DCP presentation. I love seeing the entire team here. Similar to Councilmember Bakhtiari, I have questions for different individuals, so I'm gonna go through the list. The first one is just with regards to the TPO, and specifically, I heard the response to Councilmember Bakhtiari as far as the timeline for the ordinance, but the report itself, is there a timeline on when that will be made public, when we receive a copy, when I recognize with some of the folks that spoke at public comment have some interest in seeing what this discussion.
Very shortly. We just got a draft of that, and so I would think within the next week or so.
Okay. And it'll be public, or would it be?
Yeah, it'll be public.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then that was my main question around TPO. For Director Pace, one of the questions that I had, Councilmember Bakhtiari included in her Q&A, but I'm going to redouble my efforts on that with regards to the code enforcement side of things. I know in the presentation, District 4 is leading the way in terms of code enforcement complaints. I do have some concerns around how those complaints are being generated. Is that being done by your inspectors out in the field? Is that being done by community members? Is that being done by vindictive developers that are looking for ways to remove people from their assets by ensuring there's a cascade of violations that they're unable to pay and thus have to lose their home. And it's a concern that comes up a lot, largely on the APD code enforcement side of things. We've been dealing with that in West End, in Westview, in several of my historic communities. And I've had several conversations with Director Talley over APD code enforcement to figure out what's happening there and just trying to see if that's happening with the Department of Buildings as well. And so I guess my specific question to that is would you be able to share with me how those code complaints for District 4 are being generated? Is being done by staff, they're inspectors out in the field, or are those citizen complaints that are reflected on the diagram, on the chart?
It is D, all of the above. We have citizen complaints that either call in through email. There are inspectors that we have in the field that in the process of investigating one complaint may see something else, and they'll put it in as well as disgruntled employees, disgruntled neighbors, civil matters. We get them every which way you can name.
Right, and I guess my ask is, could you send me what that breakdown is?
That's going to be kind of hard because the majority of these complaints, they'll come in with us one way, but they'll completely say, I want to remain anonymous.
Okay.
And I want to say probably 85% of our complaints are anonymous unless they're coming from one of you all.
Got it.
And you're calling for your constituent.
Okay, understood. And I have a somewhat of a theory that, and I have 3 different historic districts in my historic communities in my district, and there's additional regulatory challenges that need to be abided by that could potentially lead to a number of additional infractions that are being cited, but wanted to try to dig into that where I can as well. So I guess maybe that might be in your data set, whether or not the infractions or the citations are related to violations of the historic overlay within that particular neighborhood, or if it's something else. But that information would be very helpful for me.
Yes, and what I will tell you is that given the uptick or the rise in a lot of historic district complaints, we have in trying to make sure that in gaining more resources in our inspections area in complaints, we have assigned, we're trying to assign specific inspectors for historic properties and historic districts.
Okay.
And we're working with the Office of Design, with Matt Adams and their office, and wanting them to be more experts in those areas and attend some of the UDC hearings as well, so they can be abreast of what was approved, how it was approved, and if complaints come in, it would be easier for them to have knowledge of the specificity of that complaint and how it should be in compliance. Because the historic districts do have a lot of specific criteria that onboarding and the novice code enforcement officer will have no clue as to how to enforce that, or that it is hardy plank, cement board hardy plank is not allowed. You can't use this type, or based on the window fenestration, things of that nature. So those are something that we're working on and trying to target specific individuals to be the experts of those areas to help.
Do we have a timeline on when that program is going to be implemented? And when
We've already identified the inspectors, and now we're just having meetings with Matt and getting them more acclimated to those areas.
Okay, and then that leads to my next question, just on the enforcement side of code enforcement. I've got a number of complaints, or I get CC'd on a number of complaints from constituents. Typically, they go through the Code Busters hotline and email, and I'm CC'd on a lot of correspondence. And there seems to be, at least from what I've seen, a gap between when the complaint is filed, there's response and back and forth from the DCP team and investigation, and it's, hey, yes, there is an issue, but then that person that has been in violation is still able to move their property forward, and there might be a stop work order posted, and then that stop work order is ignored, or alternatively, in one situation, I know the conversation with SCRs came up, but there was a violation that took place. The person pressed forward with construction, and then that property was posted on Airbnb for use as a STR. And so the enforcement piece is something that I'm very concerned about, considering that if even as a city we're saying, hey, yeah, something's wrong here, there needs to be, we posted a stop work order, but things are still moving ahead. What should we be doing to make sure, I guess what's the next steps to try to get that addressed?
They need to call our office again, make us aware that they're continuing to work. When we post a stop work order, there should be no work being conducted at that site whatsoever. And if they're continuing to work, we'll go back out there and issue a citation. And every day that they're continuing to work past the stop work order, we'll issue a citation for every day that they're in violation.
And then who's, if they're not paying those citations, is that something that goes through the courts?
That's through the court system, yeah. Once we issue them a citation, we turn it over to the courts. The courts give a date. There's a pre-court hearing for them to plead guilty, no contest, etc. And then there's a hearing date that's set. And after that, we always encourage the citizens to be involved and to come to the court. We try to present as much evidence as possible and work with the solicitor's office in regards to that. But a lot of times, there's a lot of negotiations back and forth with their attorneys, the solicitor's office, and things kind of get moved to a more favorable to the violator, so to speak, and that's where we stand with it. But we have no control over the courts.
Understood. And if inspectors aren't able to get out and in short time to address the active work that's happening. Is that something that constituents can call APD for support on? Would that be under their purview to issue a citation for violation of a stop work order?
Yeah, what we've also established is even if once the inspector goes out there and posts a stop work order, they take photographs of what work was done. If after that some other work was done and we haven't caught them in the act, if we have evidence, we take photos and we see the comparison, we know that they have done some more work, we'll issue a citation based on that as well.
Okay. Well, and I will definitely follow up with regards to the specific instances where some of the properties were posted on Airbnb and other STR sites, even after there were known violations that work was being done outside of the parameters of the historic overlay. This is all in West End, just so for your awareness.
Definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question about, I know Director Young, you had talked about the CDP process. Just more broadly, want to ask if there's been any conversation about the CTP process, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. I know that kind of piggybacks off of what's being done with CDP. I know that's ATL DOT's purview in terms of implementation, but I imagine there's some coordination with DCP with regards to that work. So anything you can share on that front?
That's correct, Councilmember Dozier. In fact, we have ATL DOT staff members who are participating in the CDP process. We're in communication with the strategy folks over at ATL DOT. We're not sure exactly of the timeline of the kickoff of the CTP, but we think that's a good opportunity because there will be overlap. Maybe this fall, certainly this winter. And if you think back to the schedule I outlined, one of our focus group meetings is going to be on transportation. So they're going to be heavily involved in running that meeting, actually, and talking about Vision Zero, for example, in their CTP plan. So that'll be a good transition point to the CTP. But we have regular communication with our counterparts at ATL DOT.
Okay. And then while I still have you up here, I just want to thank you once again for your support. I know our office has been working with the administration and Invest Atlanta and others on this legacy business program proposal. I know we're still working through the legislation on this, and hopefully, knock on wood, we'll finalize everything next week. But I just want to thank you and your team because y'all did a tremendous amount of work out the gate to try to move us in this direction. And I'm thankful to just be a part of the team to help it get over the finish line. But y'all did most of that work out the gate, and want to acknowledge that work that's been done to move us forward in that direction.
Appreciate that. It was our pleasure.
Yeah. And then last question that I have for Mr. Cosby, I know there's the different priority neighborhoods included Campbellton Road. Just out of curiosity, with the planning work that's being done, what does the coordination look like with both Fort McPherson LRA as well as with MARTA around their future BRT line that's going to go along Campbellton Road in terms of are y'all working together to identify, just to make sure that, with the future sidewalks that are being proposed, that the future stations that are being proposed, that the left hand's talking to the right hand and we're not planning in a vacuum?
Exactly. Thank you so much for that question because our biweekly coordination meeting with MARTA is really kind of the center point of those conversations. And so it's in absolute lockstep with what their plans are. We're actually going through the process right now, and Brian at the back of the room is kind of the boots on the ground in terms of this work, but going through the process of getting the NPU approval and adoption of the MARTA TOD master plan document so that can go toward an application package so that we're more appealing in terms of an applicant to the to FTA for future funding. And so I know in that process, there's a lot of explaining kind of what the plan talks about, the economic impact of those station areas, the pedestrian-oriented kind of improvements along that area, as well as I know the mayor's housing team is also looking at, properties and looking at potential development opportunities along that corridor as well. But it's a very connected conversation as well as with the LRA.
And is it your office or is it the mayor's office that's kind of serving as quarterback for that?
We're coordinating on the ground right now in terms of the relationship with MARTA and the BRT line and all of the impacts there. That's a conversation also with Invest Atlanta and a lot of other parties, but Brian is the coordinating kind of muscle behind that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's just my last comment. Just want to triple echo something that my colleague, Councilmember Bakhtiari, said. STR conversation is something we've had for a very long time, and it's something that I hear from my constituents more than anything, and it's very frustrating that the systems that we put in place for redress and for support of our constituents that were baked into legislation that was passed in 2021 under my colleague, Councilmember Westmoreland's leadership, have never been put into practice. And it's just frustrating to have constituents that have an issue and we can't find a resolution on that issue that we need because we haven't put that into practice. And so I just want to reiterate that I think for all of us, there's going to be a redoubling of our efforts to get that reform over the finish line. And I recognize that there's a lot of cool and exciting things happening to Atlanta that we're going to expect a lot more visitors and tourists and conventioneers and things like that in the next couple of years. And so it's important that we get this right and we get this right as quickly as we can so that we can be the welcoming city that we know we are. But we also have to support our communities in the effort as well. So I just want to state that for the record once again. And Mr. Chair, I yield.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Dozier. Next, we're going to have questions from Councilmember Boone.
Thank you, Commissioner. This was, this staff, I interact with them so much, and they are doing a tremendous amount of work and doing great work. So I know you all hear from me, but I just want to take this opportunity to publicly thank you for all you all do for the city of Atlanta. I definitely want to meet with Stephen regarding Campbellton Road, which is in District 11. My colleague, seatmate, Councilmember Overstreet, we definitely want to meet with you regarding Campbellton Road and maybe do a tour of the Adamsville, Delmar Lane, Rosalie Wright community to add them as a priority project. Thank you for your work. Thank you. And Commissioner, I too have served in the mayor's cabinet. And when we do these quarterly reports, we also would like to hear from you. It was wonderful hearing from your tremendous staff, but at this time, we definitely, when we have these quarterly reports, we just don't want you to say, hey, you're not going to hear from me, you're going to hear from my staff. We still want to hear from the leader of this department. We pay top salary in the city of Atlanta. Top. So whereas you all are tremendous and wonderful council members, we're elected and we have thousands of viewers that look at us. We still want to hear from the leaders. We want to hear from the police chief. We want to hear from the fire chief. So when we do these quarterly reports, let's make sure that we're hearing from the leaders. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Next
you.
time you will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boone. Next, we have Councilmember Collier Overstreet.
Councilmember Overstreet.
Thank you, Chair Winston. So I decided to come in today because I was listening with, with a slight ear at first. And then I started diving in because I figured I could just get the handout and go over it later. But my ear kept coming back to the slide where it says project list complete and groups established, all but East-West Campbellton. All but East-West Campbellton is concerning. Can you please let me know why it's all but East-West Campbellton? I do need to understand that.
Sure. Stephen can speak to that.
Because, see, let me lay down a little foundation. Our city stands to grow, and our metro, Atlanta, counts on us to get South Atlanta correct because we've got East Point right there, College Park. We share streets with many other jurisdictions, especially city of South Fulton. And when we get Campbellton Road right, when east to west, I'm so glad you guys are picking up on that because I started that a few years ago when we first started doing the overlay. East-West Campbellton should be like East-West Connector, Cobb Parkway. There is an opportunity there like none other. So we should never, ever be in a posture of being okay with saying all projects on the list are established, all but East-West Campbellton, because that's where our actual, the legacy is there, but the opportunity for our city to expand and relieve some of this traffic, to develop, it's a clean slate. So I'm listening now.
Thank you for that question. And I really appreciate the chance to clarify, because you're right. It's a lot of words, and we went really fast through that presentation. I want to be clear, though. We have a very clear set of projects and a very clear project list for East Campbellton and West Campbellton that are pulled from various neighborhood plans and corridor studies that have been adopted over the past 10, 15 years sometimes. We're trying to pull from the most recent plans as we can. The MARTA TOD plan is a part of that mix, but it's not the whole of that mix. There are many other documents that are included in there. So we have a full project list. I don't want us to think that we don't have a project list for that geography. Where we are lacking or kind of still have some on the ground work to do is to identify the community quarterback organization, is what we're calling it. We have Westside Future Fund for English Avenue, Vine City. We have Grove Park Foundation for Grove Park Historic Weston Heights. We have Focus Community Strategies, or FCS, for the Thomasville Heights neighborhood, right? We have yet, with our partners in the mayor's office, to hone in on the exact right partner to be kind of the local champion of those plans and of that work along Campbellton Road that is kind of a place-based organization. The YMCA is one that we are looking at and trying to kind of hammer out and develop that relationship into one where they feel comfortable taking on that responsibility. I think we're just not there yet with them. But I know that David Edwards and others have been in talks with that organization to kind of move into that role. I think they're undergoing a lot right now in terms of organizationally, like a lot of goals and things that they're working toward.
That's what I was going to say. You know, they're intensive right now because I'm on that board actually. Yeah. I'm on that Campbellton Road Young Family Y board, and so they're like busy.
Yeah.
And thank
That's
goodness.
part of it.
You know, we asked for that. You know. So if I hear you correctly, you're saying, again, we're waiting for the mayor's office to do what exactly until we identify someone? If we're looking to identify someone that's busy, what else are we supposed to be doing in order to make sure that we don't have this narrative, the established groups, all but East-West Campbellton?
Right. So that's a great question. In the meantime, we are launching our community engagement strategy, working with and developing those relationships with NPU chairs, with neighborhood association chairs, and understanding those needs from the neighborhood. If we don't have that community partner in place just yet, that doesn't stop us from being able to have the conversations at the ground level, right? And still understanding the projects.
Because I thought that's what the whole department around the ombudsman, the 4 neighborhood relations managers, correct? Isn't that what you all also have? That's incorrect? We don't have neighborhood relations management anymore?
No.
We have 4 project managers. You saw the slide with the staff persons listed and the areas that they work on. The neighborhood relations managers that's not our office. I think that's the ombudsman's office.
Okay, and so you guys don't work hand in hand, because so it's also not your office when you're speaking with about the short-term rental. You're saying now you're waiting on the mayor's office to do that.
Yes, we were working on it up until right around budget time.
Right.
At which time the mayor's office of policy asked to work on it to come up with the revenue projections from the ordinance, what we could expect to receive in hotel motel tax and what the fee structure should be. And they have kept the ordinance in their shop this entire time. We don't have it back. And it's my understanding that they will introduce the ordinance when they are ready and have all of that part worked out.
So, bottom line, let's say that the Young Family Y is not going to be able to, help you kickstart this outreach that's necessary for the Campbellton Road project, right? What else would we be waiting on in order to make sure? Because we're missing opportunity. You see what I'm saying? Like when I see Thomasville Heights, English Avenue, and mind you, I understand what you're saying when you're talking about the neighborhood organizations that are already organized. We already know that that's not what we have on Campbellton. We have interested groups, 100% we do. But those engines, per se, that definitely move the needle and pull in thousands of residents to actually help, that's not there. And what we can't do is only help those that can help themselves as a city. We have to go past that. And I'm sure that you understand what I'm saying, right? Like we can't wait until something is handed to us to make sure that it's taken care of. We have to figure out a way in order to get this accomplished without the low-hanging fruit grabbing everything, right? So that's the only reason I came in, is to express to you how important I think it is in order for us to reach these groups, get us off of the all but list, so that East West Campbellton can be properly planned and properly plotted out, just like everything else, because this is truly the area of the city of Atlanta where the opportunity lies. It absolutely is.
I agree with you, and thank you so much for saying that. We're very excited about the neighborhood transformation initiatives. You may remember that part of our Office of Housing and Community Development staff went up to the Mayor's Office of Policy, and we've hired all of these new people, these new energetic young people to work on this. And we're coordinating with the Mayor's Office of Policy on the neighborhood transformation initiatives, and they are proceeding at maybe a little bit different rates, but we are working hard on all of them, and we look forward to the success of all of them, especially Campbellton Road.
Okay. I did, express my concern about that. I'm going to move on for now, but I definitely want to hear something different before the end of the year for sure, because it just seems like I'm not moving on this, honestly, and it's getting frustrating, to be honest. One more question, short-term rental. I got to get back to that right quick. Because we're still stuck in this holding pattern, we are in a predatory pattern as well. Our neighborhoods are being seriously bombarded with those that really don't care about our community aspects at all. And that's because they're not being properly registered and governed. And so time is of the essence. The predatory behavior is getting worse. I saw in the news the other day where we actually had one of the terrible pad split predators in court, and I don't think we were there to do what we needed to do with him. He was there, and the news spoke about, all of the different. First of all, I truly believe the pad split is illegal in the city of Atlanta.
It is.
So the fact that they have a website and many predatory behaviors happening throughout the city should be something that should be top of mind. Like, we should be on top of those rooming houses, short-term rentals. We've got to really prioritize so that we can stop some of this predatory behavior in the city.
The rooming houses are illegal in most zoning districts in the city, and it is one of our biggest code enforcement challenges. And I know that some of you have heard me say before that code enforcement is our next big thing. You may recall what we've gone through with the permitting process improvements, which was the effort, or which continues to be an effort of a lot of different departments working together. Our code enforcement has to be the same, because you can find on a given piece of property violations of the zoning code, the building code, fire code, public works code, ATL DOT code, and they all are in different departments. And what we need to do is bring all of these together, and this is going to be a very big lift, but it's something that is very important, and it's something we're working towards right now.
Okay. I'm going to end on a happy note. I want to again say congratulations to the MPU system for 50 years. That was a great celebration today in the atrium. Well done. That was fun. And, you know, let's just keep that ball rolling where we're just elevating the way we interact in our communities. Okay? Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Councilmember Boone.
Yes, Commissioner, how was this priority neighborhood list chosen? How was this chosen?
It came from the mayor's office.
It came from the mayor's office?
Yes, ma'am.
Which administration?
This one.
61?
It came from Mayor Dickens.
Thank you very much. We are very concerned about that in District 10. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? So I came in today with about 10 questions, but luckily for all of you, I only have one that wasn't answered from my colleagues. So I did want to bring up, going back to the short-term rental conversation, I am continuing to see other types of short-term rentals other than housing, pools. I'm seeing RVs. We've got entertainment spaces, warehouses that are popping up on websites that are showing up in different neighborhoods throughout District 1. So as we continue this conversation, I want to just know, are we including these types of rentals in our conversation with enforcement as we move forward?
We are able to enforce the party house ordinance. So it is not legal to rent out a residentially zoned piece of property for an event. So that includes the swimming pools and people throwing birthday parties or what have you in a short-term rental. So that part, the party house ordinance, we can enforce on that.
Okay. And so how are we going about enforcing that now? Because I know if you go on Swimply right now, which is to rent out a pool, there are pools all over, you know, the city of Atlanta that are listed on there right now.
The party house ordinance is enforced by APD. Again, this is one of those issues where different pieces of code enforcement are enforced by different departments, and we need to come together to solve this problem of it being fractured.
Okay. All right. That's it for me. But again, I just want to thank you all, everyone who came, who participated. Obviously, this was a very lively quarterly update. We had lots of questions. Appreciate everyone who participated. Again, thanks for the party that was turned up downstairs about a couple hours, an hour or so ago with the MPU celebration. And so that concludes our quarterly update today. So we're going to move on with our agenda. So thanks again, everyone. So that takes us to the communications section. Actually, we've already done communications, so it takes us to our regular agenda.
First reads.
First reads.
Of which there are a few. Item number 2 is 2040-1426, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to waive Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 1, Section 2-910, and to retroactively authorize and ratify the City of Atlanta's submission of an application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Office of Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes for the fiscal year 2024 Lead Hazard Reduction Capacity Building Grant Program on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development, to accept the LHRCB award and to amend the fiscal year 2025 Community Development Grant Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations awarded funds from the LHRCB grant program in an amount not to exceed $1,857,651.00 for the purposes of developing and expanding the infrastructure necessary to undertake comprehensive programs to identify and control lead-based paint hazards in eligible privately owned rental or owner-occupied housing, hiring staffing to manage the program and oversee the grant award, to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into any necessary agreements to project partners or with project partners for the implementation of grant acceptance and participation. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. Item number 4 is 2401428, CDP 2423, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to adopt the Campbellton Corridor Transit-Oriented Development Master Plan to amend the 2021 Comprehensive Development Plan by reference said plan and other purposes. Item number 5, 2401429, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee waiving the competitive procurement provisions contained in Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City Code of Ordinances for the purpose of providing athletic programming at Mosley Park, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Atlanta Elite, Inc., a nonprofit corporation of the state of Georgia at Mosley Park, located at 1565 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30314, for the purpose of providing youth athletic programming for youth ages 6 to 13 for a term of 3 years, with 2 one-year renewal options to be exercised upon the mutual consent of the parties and approval of Atlanta City Council and for other purposes. Item number 6 is 2401430, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee waiving the competitive procurement provisions contained in Chapter 2, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City Code of Ordinances, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Virginia Highland Volleyball, Inc., for the purpose of providing programming and maintenance for the 2 outdoor sand volleyball courts located at John Howell Memorial Park for a term of 5 years, with 1 5-year renewal option to be exercised upon the mutual consent of both parties and approval of the Atlanta City Council and for other purposes. Item number 7, 2401431, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the Department of Parks and Recreation to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the United States Tenants Association for the implementation of a junior and adult tennis apprentice program at the City of Atlanta Tennis Center sites for a term of 1 year, with 2 one-year renewal options, waiving the competitive procurement provisions contained in Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City Code of Ordinances in order to re-engage USTA to continue to provide a tennis junior and adult tennis apprentice program at the various tennis centers and for other purposes. Item number 8, 2401432. An ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta and the City of Atlanta Department of Parks and Recreation to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Atlanta Bulldogs Academy for the purposes of providing football and cheerleading programming for youth and related services at John A. White Park for a term of 3 years, with 2 one-year renewal options to be exercised upon approval of the Atlanta City Council, waiving the competitive procurement provisions contained in Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City Code of Ordinances and for other purposes. Item number 9, 2401433, CDP 2416, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 0 and 3218 Hogan Road Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the mixed-use medium-density land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 10 is 2401434, CDP 2417, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 423 Sunset Avenue Northwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 11 is 2401435, CDP 2418, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 126 Hilliard Street Southeast and 89 William H. Borders Drive from the high-density residential land use designation and 380 Decatur Street Southeast from the low-density commercial land use designation to the mixed-use high-density land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 12 is 2401436, CDP 2419, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 580 Paynes Drive Northwest from the low-density residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 13, 240-1437, CDP 2420, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 596 Paynes Avenue Northwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. And item number 14, 240-1438, CDP 2421, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 616 Oliver Street Northwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. And finally, number 15, 240-1439, CDP 2422, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1388 Northwest Drive Northwest from the medium-density residential 0 to 16 units per acre land use designation to the high-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. One moment. I may have missed number 3, and to be safe, I will read this. Number 3, 240-1427, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee on behalf of the Department of City Planning to amend the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances Part 3, Development Code, Part 6, Budget and Planning, Chapter 4, Boards and Commissions, Article F, Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee to increase the number of members on the Georgia Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee and for other purposes. You're right, I did. Thank you.
All right.
Section I, ordinances for second reading. Number 16, 240-1390, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to authorize the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta Department of Labor and Employment Services in accordance with Section 1-102C7 of the City of Atlanta Charter to accept a donation from the Annie E. Casey Foundation in an amount of $190,000.00 in order to support the City of Atlanta's Department of Labor and Employment Services concerning the following initiatives: summer jobs to permanent jobs and the summer jobs boot camp, to amend FY 2025 budget and, by adding to anticipations and appropriations donated funds provided by AECF in an amount of $190,000.00 and for other purposes.
Second. Please open the vote. It's a donation.
The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 17 is 240-1400, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 1, Section 2-910, authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for a grant award of membership in the National Housing Crisis Task Force led by the Nowak Metro Finance Lab at Drexel University and Accelerator for America, and to co-chair a 2-year National Housing Task Force valued in an amount not to exceed $250,000.00 for the purpose of serving with housing policy leaders from across the country in efforts to set the course for housing policy and practice in the United States, to authorize the city to commit matching funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund FY24 contingency reserves in an amount not to exceed $125,000.00, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute any agreements to effectuate the acceptance of this award of all funds shall be paid to and from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Bedzo.
Yeah, afternoon, council. So this is a very exciting opportunity for the city to participate in. We were selected out of really every city in America to serve as an example of what to do on affordable housing. So Mayor Dickens has been selected to chair the National Housing Crisis Task Force, along with the mayor of Cleveland and the governor of Utah. As part of that participation, we're going to be receiving a lot of really great attention from the task force, including a visit down to Atlanta. They're going to take a look at what we're doing great at housing and also provide some recommendations of how we can do things better. The second awesome thing about this task force is it gives us an opportunity to advocate for local government at the federal level for the types of federal policies, programs, and funding that we need to make and really push our housing policy in an even stronger and better direction. And so this is $125,000 is a match, and that match is considered basically staff time that we're going to be receiving from this task force. And we should all be hearing more about it soon as this starts to get rolled out through the end of the year, with the goal of having a report so that when we see who wins the presidency and the next election cycle, is that we have a lot of great recommendations that we can hand over to the executive.
Okay, thank you.
Move approval.
I have a motion to approve. It's been properly second. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open.
The next one.
The vote is closed. 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Don't go far.
Item number 18, 24-0-14-11, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason H. Winston authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a quitclaim deed conveying certain real properties located in Fulton County, Georgia, tax parcel identification numbers listed here, to the City of Atlanta Fulton County Land Bank Authority, Inc., DBA Metro Atlanta Land Bank Authority, for the public purpose of returning said land to an effective utilization status in the form of affordable housing, to waive certain provisions of Article 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, to authorize the execution of all necessary documents to effectuate the intent of this ordinance and for other purposes.
That's all.
Thank you. So this is pretty typical. We've been working with the Metro Atlanta Land Bank to dispose of 6 single-family infill lots the city has owned for a number of years. These are vacant sites. We're going to be working with the land bank on similar properties to get these built as affordable ownership opportunities and do it quickly.
Thank you. I move approval. Got a second. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 19 is 24-0-14-12, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason H. Winston to authorize the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development to amend the FY 2025 Intergovernmental Grant Fund budget in an amount not to exceed $15,393,477.00 for the purpose of funding the 2024 Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS program, and to amend the FY 2025 Community Development Fund budget in an amount not to exceed $9,484,672.00 by adding to anticipations and appropriations funds awarded by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development in a total amount not to exceed $24,878,149.00 for the purpose of funding the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Program, 2024 Emergency Solutions Grant Program, 2024 Home Investment Partnership Program, to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into various contractual agreements with subrecipients and project sponsors awarded in the 2024 Notice of Funding Availability, and for the purpose of reprogramming funds from past award programs in an amount not to exceed $1,104,275.18, to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into various contractual agreements for the projects that are assigned to DGCD and other departments of the city, and for other purposes. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the paid from the accounts listed herein.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Genevieve Jones from the Department of Grants and Community Development. The purpose of this The purpose of this legislation is just so we can put into the budget as well as contract with the individuals and agencies that were funded during our NOFA this past April. As you know, the City of Atlanta is an entitlement community, which means the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development provides us an annual allocation. The funds have been allocated to us in the amount of $24,878,149. We completed a NOFA, which is a Notice of Funding Availability, where we reached out to agencies April 1st through May 1st, and those agencies presented applications that we have since awarded and sent those recommendations to the mayor's office and council, and this is just allowing us to place those onto the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? I have a motion to approve by Boone, second by Councilmember Dozier. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas and 0 nays. Brings us to Section J, resolutions. Item number 20 is 24R3837, a resolution by Council members Liliana Bakhtiari and Michael Julian Bond, authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute Amendment Number 1 to the agreement number listed here, Emergency Food and Shelter Program, with Hispanic Alliance Georgia, Inc., on behalf of the Mayor's Office of International and Immigrant Affairs to add funds to an amount not to exceed $1,289,818.77 for all contracted work that will be charged to and paid from the Fund Department organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Sorry. Ms. Guzman.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Paulina Guzman. I'm the Director for the Office of International and Immigrant Affairs. So this particular legislation is associated with the Emergency Food and Shelter Program Humanitarian Grant. These are funds that are used to provide food, shelter, and support services to unhoused immigrants who have come from the southern border and have been released from the Department of Homeland Security. Hispanic Alliance has a contract with the City of Atlanta to serve as a subrecipient of these EFSPH funds to support new arrivals. And Hispanic Alliance has been one of our most active partners, and they've been supporting a far greater number of migrants than initially anticipated. So to date, we have reimbursed Hispanic Alliance for approximately $600,000, and they have approximately have $700,000 in pending payments. And so really this legislation is for us requesting to demonstrate that there is a need, and in order for us to continue the work with Hispanic Alliance to continue to provide these critical services, we're requesting this budget adjustment. And I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you. I want to commend Councilmember Bond for doing this in you all. With HB 1105 and the other discriminatory bills that are passed by our state legislature, it is more important now than ever to take care of migrants that are being forced here and that are facing, many of whom are refugees and are facing very inhumane conditions. So thank you for this, and I move to approve.
We have a second by Councilmember Dozier. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open.
And as someone who would have had family members that would have directly benefited from this in the 80s, I thank you for pursuing it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. That takes us to item number 21, which is 24R3838, a resolution by Council Member Andrea L. Boone, pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 1, Section 2910, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Executive Office of the Mayor to submit an application for the Summer Jobs Connect implementation grant from Summer Jobs Connect. an initiative of the City Foundation and CFE Fund to become eligible for and award up to $15,000 for the purpose of supporting and launching banking integration partnerships and banking literacy in support of the city's summer youth employment program to address challenges faced by unbanked youth in the city of Atlanta and for other purposes.
Deputy Commissioner.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Serena Walker from the Atlanta Department of Labor and Employment Services. So this is the second round of a grant that we received earlier this year or during last fiscal year from the Summer Jobs Connect program. And they are such an energetic program that came in to provide financial literacy and banking literacy and autonomy and independence and all of those good things to some of the youth that participated in the Summer Youth Employment Program. And their main purpose is to give some level of agency and independence to those that are ready to establish banks and banking accounts independent of their parents or guardians. That kind of lends their agency and autonomy to themselves. So we have established 64 accounts to date, and we're applying for the next round of funding so that we can establish some more banking accounts for summer youth.
Thank you. Have a motion to approve, a second by Councilmember Dozier. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. Brings us to number 22, 24R3852, a resolution by council members Matt Westmoreland, Jason H. Winston, Amir Faroqi, Byron D. Amos, Jason Dozier, Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Wan, Dustin Hillis, Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, and Antonio Lewis to authorize the chief financial officer to earmark and pay a total of $17 million from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the following allocated purposes in fiscal year 2025. $8 million being allocated for affordable housing production, $5 million being allocated for programs to support housing security, and $4 million being allocated for contingency reserves, debt service, and related transfers to Invest Atlanta and nonprofit partners and for other purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Besso, got anything to add other than the caption there?
It's a pretty descriptive caption. This is the second year that we've allocated the Housing Trust Fund this way. It was a big success last year. I think we just had a meeting with a lot of housing advocates and users of the fund, and I think it creates a lot of solid expectations for the coming year. We're going to use this fund to do more projects like the Melody, to do more exciting things like the Housing Help Center, and other great affordable housing projects.
Thank you.
One, motion to approve, but also could we get a basic write-up of how the dollars were used so that we can actually promote that and let our constituency know about these ones?
Yeah.
That would be very helpful.
In fact, I'll send you the presentation that we gave yesterday.
Okay.
Shows the types of projects that we used it for and what we're planning to use it for the next year.
I'm guessing the one you gave yesterday with the housing advocates, correct? Like in the meeting? Yes, that'd be great. Thank you. So yeah, again, motion to approve.
I'll second. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 23 is 24R3853, a resolution by Councilmember Jason H. Winston authorizing the Atlanta-Fulton County Recreation Authority on behalf of the Stadium Neighborhoods Community Trust Fund Committee to award grants in a total amount not to exceed $298,999.71 to fund various community service projects to benefit the Atlanta neighborhoods of Mechanicsville, Peoplestown, Pittsburgh, Summerhill, and a portion of Grant Park, and for other purposes.
Thank you, colleagues. This is the annual allocation that is authorized from the Stadium Neighborhoods Community Trust Fund Committee. So I will move approval. We have a second by Councilmember Boone. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. Takes us to item 24, 24R3908, a resolution by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into Amendment Number 1 to the agreement listed here for senior programming services with Cornell Tech Solutions LLC to add funding in an amount not to exceed $140,000.00 on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation and for other purposes.
Deputy Commissioner Voss.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of council. Doug Voss, Department of Parks and Recreation. This resolution authorizes an amendment to one of our senior service providers, Cornell Tech. The department has utilized this vendor for about a year. We legislated one of our senior program service providers last year. We have expanded our services to over 16 sites. This particular vendor is actually operating only about one right now at the Arthur Langford Center. If you noticed, Channel 26 just did an expose on all of our senior service providers, Jamila Jones, Ava Jordan, and this was one of them. And this actually was a surprise. This vendor actually provides computer literacy services to seniors and is excellent. And so we'd like to expand those services this coming year to all of our 16 sites. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. We've got a motion to approve by Councilmember Boone, second by Dozier. If you can please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. If the committee likes, we can take item number 25 and 26 together.
Please proceed.
24R3909, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the reemployment of city retiree Craig Frazier in a position of Electrical Inspector Senior in the Department of City Planning, Office of Buildings, pursuant to Section 3-505C of the Charter of the City of Atlanta for a period not to exceed 520 business days. Compensation will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein in an annual amount not to exceed $62,003.86 and for other purposes. And item number 26, 24R3910, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the reemployment of city retiree George Taylor in the position of Building Inspector Senior in the Department of City Planning, Office of Buildings, pursuant to Section 3-505C of the Charter of the City of Atlanta for a period not to exceed 520 business days. Compensation will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein in an annual amount not to exceed $58,876.49 and for other purposes.
Got a motion to approve by Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Second.
A second by Boone. If you could please open the vote. Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas and 0 nays. There are several held items the committee can act on. Item number 40 is Item number 40 is 24-1093, an ordinance by Councilmember Byron D. Amos to address violations of stop work orders by imposing fines and demolition requirements within the limits set by the Official Code of Georgia Annotated 15-7-84 to mandate the demolition of unauthorized work, to prohibit the issuance of permits for further construction, renovation, or alteration of the structure in question until it has been restored to its state as of the date of the stop work order was issued and for other purposes.
Yep.
Yes, please. Move approval.
Okay, the vote is open. Vote is closed, and it's 4 yeas and 0 nays.
We were briefly joined by Councilmember Amos, but I think he will be happy with the results.
Very happy. Thank you, along with the residents of definitely District 3. And I know many of you could probably think about work that has been done beyond stock work orders. This adds teeth. I think it rivals right with what the mayor and I are doing with the blight tax. But this sends a strong message. Hopefully we can get it passed out of council. It sends a strong message to those who wish to violate our city ordinances that we will no longer stand by and just watch it done. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Amos.
The next item is number 46. It's 2401256, CDP 2408, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1051 Moreland Drive Southeast and 1721 Woodland Avenue Southeast from the single-family residential land use designation to low-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. The request is to substitute this. It's going to add a parcel and then continue to hold it. It will be on the Comprehensive Development Plan Amendments Public Hearing September 4th agenda.
So there was a motion to bring forth the substitute from Councilmember Bakhtiari. I will second.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. This will stay held on.
There was a, so
No, I just.
Thank you.
Really? Okay, yes, please.
Motion to hold, I'll second.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 4 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 47 is 2401257, CDP 24009, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 2194 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. The motion or the request is to file this item.
Move the file. I have a second by Councilman Dozier. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. Next item is 49. It's 2401339. CDP I'm not sure what the CDP number is. But it's ordinance by Councilmember Amir Faroqi to amend the 2021 Comprehensive Development Plan to incorporate by reference said plan and for other purposes. There's an amendment in your package that will attach the Exhibit A, which is the Atlanta Medical Center Small Area Plan.
Motion to amend. We have a second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. This item, I guess we'll need a motion to hold, and it's also going to be on the September 4th CDP amendments public hearing agenda.
A motion to hold. I'll second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. And the vote is closed. It's 4 yeas and 0 nays. And that concludes the legislative items.
Thank you. Any parting words or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.